Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of The Classical Republican. Today, I'm going to step into a big pile of controversy by praising former Attorney General Bill Barr and his good and proper notion of classical republicanism. He is hated by both sides of the American political spectrum. One side despises him for being Trump's lackey, and the other side blames him for Trump not getting a second term. Regardless of all that, he spoke at Hillsdale College on the 16th of September 2020. In his speech, he did right by me, the classical Republican, by saying the Bill of Rights is not the greatest protection of our liberty, but the separation of powers are the greatest protection of our liberties. So let me read from that speech. I'll begin in the second paragraph. It says, when many people think about the virtues of our Constitution, they first mention the Bill of Rights. That makes sense. The great guarantees of the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms, just to name the first few, are critical safeguards of liberty. But as President Reagan used to remind people, the Soviet Union had a constitution too, and it even included some lofty sounding rights. Ultimately, however, those promises were just empty words because there was no rule of law to enforce them. The rule of law is the linchpin of American freedom, and the critical guarantee of the rule of law comes from the Constitution's structure of separated powers. The framers recognized that by dividing the legislative, executive, and judicial powers, each significant but each limited, they would minimize the risk of any form of tyranny. That is the real genius of the Constitution, and it is ultimately more important to securing liberty than the Bill of Rights. After all, the Bill of Rights is a set of amendments to the original Constitution, which the framers did not think needed an express enumeration of rights. Except for, George Mason. I want to focus today on the power that the Constitution allocates to the executive, particularly in the area of criminal justice. And then he goes on to say how the judiciary should remain politically detached. If you watched my Montesquieu video, you will see how classical republics have always had separation of powers. But Montesquieu, in the mid-15th century, really pushed his innovation of a completely separate judicial branch that is independent of the executive and the legislative branches. This protects all of us because none of the three should be able to dominate the others, or most importantly, dominate the citizens. Therefore, long live the Republic.